I think, bearing in mind the audience here, there's a few really salient points to make that I really think are important about the distinction between esports and sports, traditional sports, from a betting point of view, because I think that that's the most important thing to understand. We've got two good panels coming up immediately after. The first dealing with the key stakeholders, where we're going to focus particularly on esports bettors, esports fans, like who is your market as a betting company. And the second element of it will be how we deal with integrity challenges in esports. But the main point I want to make in the keynote here is about what sets esports apart. And that's primarily around the ownership and control of the games. Now, I'm sorry if any of this is kind of blindingly obvious to you, because, you know, I don't know what each of you knows about esports. So I'm sorry if this early bit is really just a little too basic for you, but I'm going to start from scratch. And that is around the fact that most of you will be familiar in the betting world, of course, with the way in which traditional sports are governed. So from international federation downwards, you deal with, if we take football, for example, as the main example of how this is done, you go from FIFA to UEFA to the FAs of the various countries, and from there down to the clubs and grassroots level. So you've got a very obvious pyramid of governance. And the key feature of all of that governance, for good or bad, mostly bad, is that nobody owns the game. So that if all of us go outside and kick a ball around, we can call it football, and FIFA, UEFA can't do a damn thing about it. And this is the key difference with esports, is that somebody owns the game. Esports is an umbrella term, right? It's like saying the Olympics, betting on the Olympics. What does that mean? It's 26 different sports that range in character, in culture, in community, dramatically. So right at one end, for example, you have the 100-meter men's final, where you've got 1.2 billion people watching worldwide interests, and at the other end, you've got, say, the dressage or taekwondo final, where you've got about 12 people interested in watching, and everything in the middle. And esports is exactly the same. We have games ranging from the top end with massive 100 million plus audiences like League of Legends, Dota 2, Counter-Strike Global Offensive, down to niche community games like Super Smash Bros. Or Tekken, or, yeah, I mean, there's a million examples, about 20 games, 25 games that are considered esports out of the thousands of video games that exist. And each one of those games is owned by a publisher or developer that can control who plays it, under what conditions, how the game looks, literally on a day-to-day basis. So one of the things that makes esports betting interesting is that the game itself can change from day to day through patches, and often does, because you have to bear in mind in this world that the game's publishers, the people who own the game, make their money from the 10, 50, or 100 million people who play the game at amateur level on a daily basis, the fans. These are the people making micro purchases, $3, $4, $5 a month, that are the cash flow, the lifeblood of the game's publisher, and they are the most important people to the game publisher. Esports is the elite at the top of every game. It's 300, 400, 500 people who make their living playing the game. And they are not anywhere near as important as the 100 million who play the game, because at best, they are a marketing tool for the game's publisher. Esports exists at the whim of the publisher, and that's the difference, right? Football does not exist at the whim of FIFA, but League of Legends does exist as an esport at the whim of Riot, the game publisher. And so we've had instances in the past, for example, where a balance is changed within the game, or a patch made that alters the game or the map or some feature of the game literally weeks before a major esports tournament. So these players who have developed their skills against a particular balance suddenly find they're about to go into a tournament with a different balance. It's literally as if FIFA decided 2 weeks before the World Cup that they were going to make the goals bigger. or narrow the field, or play with 9 people instead of 11, and so on. So that is a major feature difference of esports versus traditional sports. And then, of course, you have to think about the bettors themselves and the communities that develop around each of these games, because they are very different. The culture of each game within the esports umbrella is different because the games are of different nature. So you have first-person shooters, obviously, like Counter-Strike and Rainbow Six and games like this. And at the same time, you've got these multiplayer online battle arena games like Defense of the Ancients 2 and League of Legends. Then you've got games like PlayerUnknown Battlegrounds, which are these massive multi-person, multiplayer battle arena game, not battle arena games. Sorry, I've gone blank on that one. This is the joy of having a presentation, right? As you can turn around and remind yourself what you're saying. But my point here is that each of these communities, and therefore each of the betting groups of fans, have to be treated to some degree in a separate way, the same way you might attract or use different tactics to attract customers who are cricket bettors versus football bettors versus rugby bettors and so on. And for betting purposes, historically, since the boom in esports betting, we've been really focused on 3 games because about 80 or more % of all esports betting globally is happening in 3 games. And that is, firstly, Counter-Strike Global Offensive, secondly, Dota 2, Defense of the Ancients 2, and then thirdly, quite a long way third, but still extremely important, is League of Legends. And then you have the rest. And there's a fight for dominance, both in terms of audience, commerciality, professionalization, between those, what we call the big 3, and everything else. And of course, what every publisher wants is that breakthrough game that brings them up level with the big 3. But that hasn't happened for probably 5 years, at least. And we're still waiting for the lesser games, a lesser game or more, to come up and move into that space. So for now, from a betting operator perspective, from a data provider perspective, you're really, to be at the heart of everything, you have to be in one or more of those 3 games, and then hope that your operations in other games catch up with the popularity as the popularity of those games go on. So the big issue that we're going to be covering today is, in the absence of a governing body for this thing we call esports, how do we address threats and challenges to competitive integrity and to betting integrity? And this is a genuine challenge, because in 2015, I conducted an integrity threat assessment of the industry at a time when the dominant betting modality was skins betting, which was in-game virtual items that were being used as currency. And there were probably 60 or 70 betting operations out there who were trading skins. The problem with that, of course, is that there was a third-party market to exchange those skins into fiat currency. So they became, in effect, their own crypto. And had the publisher not cracked down on that in 2016, we were expecting about $7 billion worth of betting trading in skins in 2017. And of course, that didn't happen. What we saw was a drop-off in 2017 of handle or overall revenue, while people migrated from the now dead and dying skins markets to the cash markets, and as bettors became more sophisticated and grew up, particularly in the 2 main games being Counter-Strike and Dota 2, and moved into the cash markets. But we've seen since then, again, the sort of phenomenal growth that I hope most of you are aware of, and perhaps even here to chase and find out more about. And so addressing the integrity challenges within that is something that the Esports Integrity Commission and I do, but we are a members association, poorly funded. So the best way to describe that is that we are trying to do what, say, the tennis integrity unit does, or the athletics integrity unit, or FIFA's integrity unit, on about 1/10 of the budget of those organizations, with no governing body to back us. So it's a challenge. Be aware that if you come into this market there is potential for amazing reward because it is growing so quickly, but there's also a considerable amount of danger. So I think that will do for my introduction, because we do have a great panel ready for you who are going to talk about, firstly, who the stakeholders are and perhaps how to reach them. And then we're going to talk about the integrity issues with another great panel of lawyers with experience in this area. So thank you very much, and let's get on with it.